العاصمة المصرية القاهرة العربية. نبدأ سويا حلقة جديدة من حلقات بعد تحية. في البدء نذكركم كالمعتاد بالبريد الإلكتروني للبرنامج التحية @المحور.tv ونبدأ اللقاء. Mr. Lord Alderdice, the President of Liberal International, thank you to be with us today. It's a great honor to be my guest today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. It's very pleasant to be with you.
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to ask you about if you have some chances to examine the liberal situation in Middle East, in Egypt especially, or you haven't this chance. I would like to tell us more about, according to your experience, about what do you think about the liberal, if we have here liberal movement or not?
Well, I think there are many people in Egypt and in the wider Middle East who have liberal ideas, liberal convictions and beliefs, but there is clearly not a very strong liberal party or Well, one of the reasons that we have come here is because we're aware that there are many people in the wider Middle East who want to see reform, who want to see democracy, who want to see men and women having the same chances and want freedom, religious freedom, freedom of association and of belief, freedom to trade and to travel. But these people don't have much political power. They're not even sure how to get involved in political life. And so we have come to try to build up networks and relationships because there are now many liberals who are involved in political life in Europe, where we have 5 prime ministers, lots of European commissioners and governments that liberals are involved with. And increasingly in Asia, in Latin America, in Africa, we have the development of liberal ideas, and we would like to give assistance to those in the greater Middle East who also want to see these kinds of developments.
Yes. But you know, the term of liberalism is somehow we can find some difficulty to definition. Can we say some definition for the liberalism, and can we say that the international liberalism can also the Arab liberalism, or there is difference between the two approaches?
Well, there isn't any difference in liberal principles anywhere in the world. And what are they? They are, first of all, that we believe that people should be free to have their beliefs, whether these are religious beliefs or not religious beliefs, free to talk about those beliefs, free to associate with others of their choice, free to trade and to travel. Freedom is very important for us. But secondly, liberality, that is to say generosity of spirit. We're concerned about people who are ill, who are not educated, who do not have the same chances in life, people who are poor, to give them the chance to improve their circumstances, to look after their health, look after their family, see their children educated so that they can improve their circumstances. We're concerned to see people's human rights respected, that the environment is protected, not just for this generation, but also for our children and our grandchildren. And of course, very especially, we want to see peace and stability and reconciliation in places where there has been conflict. That's what liberals stand for. They stand for peace and reconciliation, they stand for freedom, and they stand for a concern for people who are poor or ill or in difficult circumstances.
But explain to me, Mr. Lord, how can the liberal ideas growing in poverty atmosphere, how can it could be? There is poverty and there is low of education, there is somehow there is low of democracy. How can liberalism be in this situation?
Well, if you take, for example, the country that I come from, the United Kingdom, in the early part of the last century, during the 1920s and 1930s, there was a great deal of poverty. There was an economic depression. People didn't have good chances. Old people had no pensions. The healthcare system was very poor. Who was it who brought in social welfare, education, pensions? This was liberals. This was people like Lloyd George and William Beveridge who brought forward these ideas. The idea that liberals don't want the government to be involved, that it's all about big business, this is nonsense. That's not what liberalism is about. There are some people who like to take that bit of liberalism that talks about the free market and say, we are liberals, this is all we're interested in. That's not liberalism. Liberalism is about a concern about ordinary people. Now sometimes that means that liberals say the government needs to be more involved in providing health care, in building infrastructure, in protecting people, in providing schools, in places where these things are not available, the government may have to get more involved, along with the private sector and the community and voluntary sector and civil society. There are other places where the government is too involved in these things, where it takes over, it becomes too authoritarian. And then liberals say, no, no, for a liberal society, you government need to be less involved to leave people more free. So the principle is of working with people, not putting things onto people,
Yes.
but it is of providing opportunities for everybody, that everyone's life is worth the same. Not that there are some people who are worthwhile and there are other people who are not. Liberals are very committed to human dignity and respect and human rights.
You spoke in the morning about the gender equality and situation of the woman. I would like to ask you especially about this issue because, of course, you heard that the woman in Arab society and Middle East in general may be describing in some of time about it is illiberal at all. How do you think this point? Are you agree with this point or not agree?
Well, I think there are certainly circumstances in the Middle East and indeed all around the world, including in the West, where there are women who do not have the opportunities that they ought to have or the freedom they have. But we need to be a little careful sometimes that we don't confuse.
Yes. Also, your activity nowadays, we are searching and are working on to launching what we can say regional network for liberal leaders. Let me more about this network.
Well, in almost all parts of the world now, in Europe, in Asia, in Latin America, Africa, we have regional networks of liberal parties, and we think that the Middle East should have one too.
Mr. Lord, we have a problem, very sensitive problem here about the Arab world. You know, of course, you hear that according and the atmosphere of clash of civilizations, we have a very bad image in Western mind. We have, as an Arab and Islamic people, have some bad image, like terrorists, like lazy, like bomber, and so on and so on. Also, one of these bad images that in Arab people, not liberal at all. Are you agree or disagree with this image?
I don't think it's at all a fair image. We all know how this image has come about.
How
but-
this image come about?
Well, of course, when there are some attacks, as there was in 9/11 and so on, and people get frightened and they start to turn against other people, they build these caricatures and they see other people as frightening and as all the same and so on. I saw that in my part of the world when there were IRA bombs against Protestants. Then Protestants became frightened of Catholics and they became antagonistic to them, and then Catholics became antagonistic to Protestants and so on and so on. But of course these are caricatures. This is not the reality of things. And we find that in our countries we must challenge these caricatures. It is rather troubling to, for example, those of us in Europe, that Europe is turning in on itself, and some people in Europe are becoming very antagonistic to foreigners, to people from outside Europe. This is very mistaken and very unhelpful and unfair. And so as liberals, we are trying to make sure that this doesn't happen, or that we limit the effect of this, because as far as we are concerned, of course, there are people from the Arab world who have violent intentions and so on, and there are people from the Jewish world and from the Christian world who have violent intentions and want to send aircraft and armies and so on in. That doesn't mean that everybody has those views, not at all. And so we must build the relationships across these divisions so that we get a real picture of each other, not these caricatures which are so destructive.
Mr. Lord, to finalize with you, can you, according to your experience, a great experience in liberalism field, what is the key word to be liberal for anyone?
I think there are two. One is freedom, and the other is generosity. We can't ourselves be truly free without a sense of respect and generosity towards other people. A freedom which is only freedom for me is not a real freedom at all.
Thank you very much for that precious interview. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
that enables us to reach an agreement for the present. Now that is not to say that you will not wish, and I've no doubt you will wish subsequently to build other documents and these. Can we have a roving mic, please? Thank you.
Actually, I agree with you.
Well, can I pick up on those points, and then hopefully we can move to deal with it. On the question of taking out the section on the end of the Israelis, as though they all believe the same thing, of citizens of the United States are opposed to the position of their document that we share, that we can give to each other, that we can give to others who may wish to join us, and that subsequently can be built upon. Please.
كامل الأقليات في جوهر الدين الإسلامي نصا وروحا، فلا أعتقد هناك أي مبرر ثقافة حقوق الإنسان ككل التي نطالب بها على الأقليات.
أنا أتفق تماما مع حضرتك في إنه لا داعي لخداع النفس واستخدام مصطلحات يعني غير دقيقة، لكن أنا أنظر
that we call on Israel to facilitate and not hinder by any means any humanitarian assistance to the Lebanese, led by the United Nations to the Lebanese.
ونحن في إطار مناقشة الحركات الليبرالية العربية وكيفية تولد حركة ليبرالية عربية متطابقة مع المفاهيم الدولية. يسعدنا في هذا اللقاء أن يكون معنا السيد جسبر بين، وهو السكرتير العام للليبرالية الدولية. Mr. Jasper, thank you to be with us today.
It's my pleasure.
Firstly, I would like to ask you about what is the definition of the liberalism according to Liberal International?
Well, we define ourselves with a couple of key concepts. First of all, freedom. Individual freedom is a very important aspect for liberals throughout the world. Secondly, we strongly believe in a market economy connected with the rule of law, social justice, the responsibility of every individual which comes with freedom, human dignity, respect for human rights and individual rights.
Mr. Jasper, I would like to ask you, what is the liberal values we can spreading in Middle East and Arabic nations?
Well, I think the liberal values and the values subscribed in the Islam are to a large extent overlapping each other. The same key concepts that I just mentioned, human dignity, individual rights, these are also very strong components within Islam. So to a certain extent, all these rights and duties and values are already present within the region. There is sometimes a misconception about liberalism and what it stands for. Liberalism is absolutely not against religion. It believes that there should be a separation from governance and religious matters. That should not be a matter for the state, but that should be a private matter, whether you believe in Allah, or you believe in a God, or you believe in humanistic values. That's a personal choice, and that should not be a state affair. So but that doesn't mean that liberals are against religion. We would rather value the tolerance aspect and the mutual understanding of each other rather than separation.
It is a common values you can apply it according to international definition, or it is different from society to another society?
No, it's these are common values spread throughout the world. The implementation of some of these values might differ from society to society, but you can't compare Egypt with the Netherlands or Sri Lanka with Argentina. So every country has got its own setup of infrastructure, social institutions, governance. So the application will differ. Sometimes liberals will argue for a lesser role of the state because they feel that the state has too much power over the individual. In some states, the individuals have too much power and the state has not enough influence. So there, liberals would argue for a bigger role of the state to ensure welfare, prosperity, and equal opportunities for all. The idea is Liberal International has got a number of regional networks. We have one in Asia, one in Africa, and one in Latin America. And these networks are extremely important to foster a communication, a dialogue amongst the people from that region, and to help and support each other, to break down nationalistic boundaries, to have another means of diplomacy to get mutual understanding of each other's cultures and concerns, and to try and support each other in that way. So we felt that it was extremely important to have actually same setup in the Middle East, because the Middle East is of course a great and enriched region where we feel that there are many liberal and reform-minded politicians, thinkers, NGOs trying to ensure that their societies will prosper, develop more, get more democracy and a better respect for human rights. And therefore it is very important that we establish a network where people can actually from out the region get in contact with each other and to strengthen
What is the criteria for these members? It should be for political parties or maybe NGOs or individual members?
Well, it should be all. I would very much hope to see that we have liberal academia, liberal thinkers, NGOs who better the cause of democracy and prosperity on a local community level, who might wish to join, or political parties with a liberal outlook or a reform-minded outlook.
Jasper Veen, General Secretary for Liberal International, thank you to be with us today. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much.
الليبرالية معناها الحرية، كلمة السحرية لتقدم البشرية ولتقدم الأمة العربية. نذكركم بالبريد الإلكتروني للبرنامج التحية @المحور.tv، وهنا العاصمة المصرية القاهرة العربية. هذه التحية.